Hi everyone. Before we continue, please let me point out two new additions to the Patreon credit roll. Both Louis, who is probably, I think, one of my very first subscribers when I started doing the tutorial videos, and Gennady. Now, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. If you want to support the channel as well and get some tab notation files and early access to other tutorial videos in the process, then please head over to my Patreon site as well. On to the tune. As always, I'm doing these intros after shooting and editing the whole tutorial video, and I am tired, really tired. Not just right now, but in the video as well. My newborn son has been keeping me up for weeks, and I think I haven't slept more than 3 hours straight for the last 2 months. I managed to hide it in the beginning of the video, but by the end of the video it's probably clear for everyone that I'm really tired. There are a few edits. I had to edit in a few text bulbs to explain a few things a little bit better than I'm actually doing in the video, but still all the information you need is right here. The song we're covering today is Those Who Wait. The story or the emotions behind the song, as Tommy has explained frequently, are that good things happen to those who wait and who constantly work hard. So I can't imagine a better motivation to just push on ahead with the tutorial video, even despite the sleep deprivation or the lack of sleep. Now, I have taught this song already several times to several students, and they all struggle with the same thing. Overall, the song isn't that terrifyingly difficult as a lot of other Tommy Emmanuel songs, but there are two things that trip up most guitar players when it comes to Those Who Wait, and that is the absolutely huge chord voicings you need to play the intro, as well as a particularly nasty chord in the chorus section. For both these passages, if you want to play it in the way Tommy does, you actually need massive hands. There's no way around it. Really difficult voicings with a thumb over the side of the neck, and still having to do quite a lot of work with the other digits as well. Luckily, I have found a few alternative ways in which you can play this song by tweaking some minor details with regular sized hands as well. That being said, let's get to work. Grab your guitar, grab a plectrum, and let's go to sleep. So let's get to work. The first thing you need to do is get your acoustic guitar and drop down the low E string to a low D. So you get into drop D tuning. The second thing you need is a plectrum or a flat pick. Now, I would advise using a fairly heavy pick. Make sure you play with a plectrum that doesn't bend too much when you're picking separate notes. So no really thin strumming plectrum. Make sure you get something that is a little bit thicker and a little bit more robust. Onto the tune. Tommy is not holding back in this one. I expect for most people that the intro will feature the most difficult chord fingerings of the whole song. So I'm going to go over the intro one time, and I'm going to show you the fingerings Tommy uses to play them. I will warn you, you need massive hands to get this down. Even with an excellent playing posture, some things will just seem impossible to do. That's why after showing you what Tommy does to play the intro, how he does it, I'll come back and show you a few alternatives that will make life a lot easier. I use some of them as well when playing the song live. Here we go. So that's how Tommy himself plays it. One quick word about that opening harmonic run. This is really hard to do slowly. What you're doing is Tommy is sweeping down, so he's using all downstrokes, but he's not sweeping all the way down to the top string. He's actually only playing, for instance, the low E, A, and D string. And while he's doing those downstrokes, he's keeping his middle finger on the top string. As soon as he has played those 3 bass notes, he will pull up that middle finger across all 6 strings. Pulling up that middle finger is actually an arm movement. This is not something you try to do. The movement itself is not generated by the middle finger or by the wrist. You just pull up the whole forearm to get that harmonic sound. So 3 or 4 downstrokes, and then everything is pulled up. When I do this slowly, it seems as if every single note is a different movement, and this is the contrary, exactly opposite of what should happen. Both that downstroke should be one single movement, and that upstroke, that pull up with the middle finger, should be one single movement as well. The hard part is the switch between the plectrum and the middle finger. Tommy really has this down. This is really fluid motion. You don't hear the transition between the plectrum and the middle finger, but that's the hardest part. So strumming down and then coming back with the middle finger. Try to get both parts as even as possible. So these notes should all be even and these notes should all be even. Make sure you don't get something like this, but just one fluid motion for all those harmonics. That's about the effect you should get. And then it's straight into those chord voicings. The first one is an easy one, luckily. Open low D string, A string, 4th fret with the ring finger on the D string, open G string, and then middle finger on the 3rd fret on the B string. You make sure that when you pick that last D note on the B string, you keep that ringing out while you're transferring to the 2nd chord, which is an F chord with an added 6th and 9th degree. Thumb over the side of the neck on the 3rd fret, pinky 5th fret on the D string, index finger 2nd fret on the G string, middle finger 3rd fret on the B string. The way you play this arpeggio can be done in 2 different ways. Is you can either just let that top D ring out while you're going over to the chord and then just play the arpeggio, or you can re-pick that top D string with the middle finger using hybrid picking, plectrum and the bass note and the middle finger on the top note at the same time. Playing the bass note, the arpeggio across the D chord, B string, and then re-pick the B string with the middle finger. Or you can just leave that top D note ringing out. Without re-picking it with the middle finger. And that is basically the main variation that Tommy plays throughout the intro. Either he just leaves that D note ringing out while transferring to the next chord, or he will re-pick that D note as soon as he plays the bass note using hybrid picking. You'll see me change this throughout the intro and playing through it. Do the same thing. If one thing works better for you, then stick to that in the beginning and try to work in the variation later on. So we got 2 chords down, but here comes the really difficult one. The D chord to the F chord to a G chord with an added 9th. Ring finger, 5th fret on the low E string, pinky, 5th fret on the D string, index finger, 2nd fret on the G string, middle finger, 3rd fret on the B string. Not an easy chord by any means. So the way you arpeggiate the chord is the exact same thing as on the F chord. So D chord, you just arpeggiate arpeggiate the chord and you make sure that especially that last D note keeps ringing out as you're transferring back to the first D chord. It's that top D note that really binds everything together. As you can see, when you transfer from that F added 6/9 chord to the G chord, everything stays in the same spot, only the bass note changes. You're not done yet. The hardest chord still has to be played. You're playing this part 3 times in a row. Going to add in the hybrid picking. Again, the same thing, just using the plectrum, no hybrid picking. And now a little run. So open low E string, which is a D, A string, D string, index finger 2nd fret, pinky 4th fret, no ring finger but pinky, sliding up to the 5th fret. Moving to the 2nd fret on the G string and make sure that note on the pinky rings out as you play the G string as well. So these 2 notes overlap. And then the real killer, a huge chord, thumb over the side of the neck on the 3rd fret, pinky 5th fret on the D string, index finger 2nd fret on the G string, middle finger 3rd fret on the B string, ring finger 3rd fret on the high E string. Yet again an F chord with an added 9th and 6th degree, but a very difficult fingering. No worries. I'm going to play this intro one more time, really slowly, the way Tommy does it, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you a few alternatives in terms of fingering, which will make this intro a lot easier or even playable if you got a lot smaller hands, or if you want to play this on a nylon string, for example, then I've got a few tricks that will actually make this manageable. I have very large hands, and even that last chord, I usually play something else when I play this song live. But one more time, the Tommy version. Hybrid picking. I'm just playing arpeggios. Times. Repeat it. Now that little run upwards. Excuse me for that one buzzing note there, but that is how Tommy plays it. Now, let me show you a few alternatives. As always, when changing stuff Tommy does, you're always, it's a compromise. You're always making the song just a little less vibrant, or some details really have to go. But this might be the difference between being able to play this song or having to scratch it all together. Rest assured, this is the hardest part concerning the chord voicings. Everything in the rest of the song is actually a lot easier. So what can we do? We are going to start with that same D chord. And now, what you can do is just use the thumb over the side of the neck on the 3rd fret. And then instead of using the pinky, use an open G string, adding in the index finger on the 2nd fret right away. It's the same notes. So whenever I'm using the pinky, or the open string, the exact same notes we're playing, but we are missing that overlapping sound because we have to play the G and the A separately. Moving the pinky to the 5th fret and doing the exact same thing. So then you get this. hybrid picking. The same run. And now this huge chord can be made a lot easier by one or two things. The first thing you can do is leave out the pinky, because we're playing an F chord with an added 6th and 9th degree, but we're actually playing the 9th degree 2 times on the top E string and on the D string. Now if we remove the pinky from the D string, then this is a 6th degree, which is already in the chord. So we're not doing anything wrong, we're not changing the quality or the name of the chord, we're just using a different voicing. So instead of playing this, you can play this with an open D string. And if that still feels difficult, you can leave out the index finger as well. Now we are changing the name of the chord just slightly. Now we're playing a sus chord instead of a major chord. But again, it can make a big difference. You could even play this like you would play a normal G chord. Let me play the intro using that alternative fingering. It sounds a bit different. There are some details that we have to leave out in order to make the fingerings a little bit easier. But I'm sure that if you play this, it will actually sound fine if you practice it, if you make sure that everything sounds fluent. But most people will actually find this a lot easier. A lot of people will find the Tommy chords in some cases really impossible to play, and this should really fix that problem. When I play this song live, I use a mixture of both. I use Tommy's chords, so I use both chord voicings like this, but I use the different ending chord. So I usually play the ending chord like this. Standing up, I really feel that this is a really difficult chord to play. So just to make sure that it sounds fine, I usually cheat and play it like this. That's the whole intro. Let me play it one more time, really slowly, then it's on to the verse. Different fingering. Original fingering. Alternative ending chord. That's the intro. Don't be scared, try the alternative fingerings because they will make life a lot easier. The rest of the song in terms of fingerings for the left hand is easier than what we just did in the intro. Let's have a look at the verse. One time, then the explanation will follow. Let's have a look at that first. The verse consists mainly of 3 different chords. A D minor 11 chord, open low E string, open A string, then middle finger 5th fret on the D string, ring finger 5th fret on the G string, pinky 6th fret on the B string, and the index finger 3rd fret on the high E string. Moving to an F chord, an F with an added 9th and an added 6th degree, but a really easy voicing this time. Ring finger on the low E string, 3rd fret, index finger, 1st fret. That's usually it. And then we're going to move that over to a G chord, up 2 frets with the bass note, and the melody on the G chord there are a few variations. Now, there's two things you can do. I like to play the bass note on the G chord with the ring finger as well. So usually you'll see me just moving up to the 5th fret. But this will make for a few big stretches. Sometimes you'll have to play a melody note on the 2nd fret. I can manage that. If you find this difficult, then there is no problem at all with switching out the pinky on the low bass string so you can reach that 2nd fret just a little bit easier. Sounds just as fine as... So that's something for you to try and figure out and see what works best for you. You'll see me use the ring finger mostly, but the pinky works just as well. I'm going to stick to the easiest version of the melody in this verse, and then in the 2nd verse I'll be adding in a few variations so you can learn the song in that way as well. So first the basic framework, then adding in the variations. We're starting with an arpeggio of that D minor 11th chord, just moving down with the pick. So downstroke, downstroke, downstroke. And as soon as we end up on the G string, we're going to use the middle finger to pluck the high E string at the same time. And we're going to pull off with the index finger straight away to an open string. Playing the 6th fret on the B string, 6th fret on the B string. Then playing a C on the 5th fret on the G string, and we're going to be moving down to the 1st fret on the B string right away, which is a C as well. So this note and this note are the exact same thing. Reason why we're doing that switch is so we can play the next bass note without having to release the melody note. So this note can ring across the next chord change. Really easy, just that 1st fret, 3rd fret in the bass, and then nothing but open strings. And then again, hybrid picking, bass note on the low E string, middle finger on the B string. And the 2nd chord, the G chord, is always in front of the beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you always get 1, 2. That one is always in front of the beat. The next melody over that G chord is something different every time Tommy plays it. The easiest versions is just 2 very light strums across the D and G string and adding in the 2nd fret to close out the melody on the G string. And then after that, the same thing. 2nd time, playing that 1st fret to the bass note and then hammering on the pinky on the 3rd fret. So 1st fret B string, bass note, hammering on the B string in that order. 3, 4, 1. That's the move. 3, 4, 1, 2. Moving to an open E string on top. Same timing in front of the beat, shifting up the exact same fingering, 2 frets, and then playing hybrid picking, bass note and melody note at the same time. 3, 4. Bit of a stretch here, like I told you, so ring finger on the 5th fret and then hammering on to the 2nd fret on the G string. 3, 4. Again, the same melody. Moving to the middle finger on the 2nd fret, because now we have to transfer to a B flat major 7th chord. When I learned how to play this song, there was no YouTube around, so I just played the notes I needed. first fret with the index finger on the low A string, middle finger, second fret on the G string, pinky, third fret on the B string. And that's what I played. Now, if I watch Tommy play the song now, I actually realize that he's playing a full B flat major 7th chord, so he's also adding in the ring finger on the 3rd fret. When you read through the tablature, you'll see no need for this, but he adds it in. Sometimes he likes to strum the whole chord as well, and that's when you need that 3rd fret on the D string as well. This is how the melody goes. It's always the same trick. So you play the melody note, 3, 4, bass note, and then pulling off that melody note to an open G string, and then playing the 3rd fret on the B string. 3, 4. And the very last time it's just an open G string as melody note. Then you move up the index finger 1 fret to get a B minor 7 flat 5 chord, but the melody and the technique you're using is the exact same thing. You can also play it without using the ring finger. Back to back. Back to the B flat chord. One thing I forgot to mention is the first time that melody note is bound across the bar, so 3, 4. And then the second time you have to use hybrid picking, middle finger and plectrum, to play the melody note at the same time as the bass note. Third time, exactly the same thing. Hybrid picking, and again the bass note together with the melody note. Really slowly, 3, 4. Hybrid picking. Hybrid picking. To an open A string and a little single note run. Open A string, hammering on, open D string to the 2nd fret, to the 3rd fret using the index finger and middle finger. Index finger swaps to the G string, as does the middle finger, again on the 3rd fret. Index finger to the B string, again 2nd fret. Open E string, and you're using that open E string to shift the pinky to the 6th fret. And once you arrive there, you're in perfect position to head straight back into that first D minor 11th chord for the verse. Back to back. And straight into the next verse. Let me play everything we have up until this point back to back really slowly so you can follow along. And then in the next part of the verse, I'll be introducing a few little variations you can add into the melody as you go and play the song through. Here we go. One time, the verse really slowly. That is the first verse really slowly. I'm going to play through the second part of the verse now, and I'm going to add in a few little variations on the melody. Once you get those variations down, feel free to add them into the first verse as well. once you arrive there, it's straight into the chorus. Now, just two little variations, but I think they sound nice. They're not too hard to put in there. So the first one, no change in this part, but just for a change, we're shifting to the G chord without a melody on top, and then we're playing the melody right after the bass note. And I think that's a very simple but a very nice change, because Tommy plays melody notes on top of that G bass note all the way through the song, but every now and then he just leaves one out and plays the melody right after it. It's really simple, but it's a really effective tool to keep the song interesting with just a really small variation. One more time. Really easy to get into your fingers, but really effective if you play the whole song through. Second variation. This one is something he plays often during the song. You're playing the same arpeggio, and then as soon as you end up on the G string, you're sweeping down really quickly. Sometimes he likes to start on the D string as well. And the thing to aim for is the timing of that open E string. That one should always fall on the third beat. 1, 2, 3. That's what you're aiming for. 1, 2, 3. See? So Tommy plays with the timing. Sometimes it's 3 strings, sometimes it's 4 strings, but the timing of that open E string is always the same, on the third beat. Don't be too conscious about that down sweep. It's just, again, as in the intro, one single movement, really fluid going down, and you can even hang just a little bit on that G note before pulling off to get the timing right. So you can really pull it back a little bit. That's the second variation. Melody is the same. And then I used the first variation again with the separate bass note. Back to the B flat major 7th chord, but now we're staying on the B flat major 7th chord for 2 bars. Again, B flat major 7th, 2 B minor 7 flat 5, and to a C at the 9th chord. Make sure you pay attention. Second bar. The pinky hasn't moved a single time. One time, that part of the verse really slowly, and then we're taking a dive into the chorus. So that's part 1 of the tutorial video of Those Who Wait. By now you have the intro and the verse down with the basic framework and some variations to work around with. The chorus, the bridge and the ending are covered in part 2. Have fun and see you next time. Bye bye.